Testing, testing.
Hello.
Hello there, is it Joe?
Yo. Yeah, I'm here.
Nice to meet you. Are you with the Assyrian Orthodox Church?
Oh no, I'm not baptized, but I'm Protestant right now, but I'm inquiring.
Well, I guess you're inquiring pretty seriously because you chose Orthodox when choosing your religion. Are you pretty much convinced they teach the truth?
Yeah.
You mind if I ask how old you are?
Yeah, I'm actually like what is it? Like 20s, but I said 30. I misclicked, I think.
That's all right. So I assume you were Protestant for a while and you realized that you were part of a church that had been founded so many centuries after Christ's actual church, and you didn't want to be part of some later church. You want to be part of the original church. So you chose to join the Orthodox Church. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I haven't joined yet, but that's basically yeah.
I see. And how did you confirm that the Orthodox Church was the original church?
Like this is gonna sound like a joke, but I watched a lot of J Dyer videos and read up on online like New Advent, like church fathers and stuff. It clicked, it kind of made sense.
Yep, the principle is correct. The philosophy is correct of going back to the beginning and not allowing the religion to be changed or corrupted. But the question is the Orthodox Church that original religion? Or has it been corrupted? Most people, even most Orthodox, will admit it has been corrupted very much. They'll say the leadership is corrupt, but even though the leadership is corrupt, like Kirill and, Bishop Bartholomew, and
Oh yeah.
they'll
Oh,
say,
I'm not world Orthodox, like I'm true Orthodox.
oh, well, that changes everything. Then you're in a tiny minority.
Yeah.
I
Not
see.
tiny, but there's like people say like 10 to 15 million, but that seems a lot. I don't know. There's a lot of them in Greece, Bulgaria, and Romania though, and some in Russia as well.
I see. Do the old believers call themselves true Orthodox in Russia?
Wait, sorry.
Maybe you don't know about them. There is a group in Russia called Old Believers, but I don't think that they're part of the true Orthodox Church. There are a bunch of different groups. That's one of the things that you'll learn when you're becoming Orthodox is just how many Orthodox groups are fighting with each other and that consider all the others to be heretical. Have you noticed that yet?
Yeah. Like I gotta be quiet because it's kind of late and like my family's sleeping. But yeah. I know about the old believers, but they have no priests. They have like no. They got cut off with the apostolic succession, so they're like priestless
Well, do you
right
know
now.
why they separated themselves?
Yeah, from like the 1666 reforms in Russia, I think, liturgical reforms, I think.
Well, there
Yeah.
are multiple groups. There are some that are more recent, and they are actually saying the exact same thing you're saying. They are saying the Russian Orthodox Church no longer has priests because all of them were killed off in the 1940s. There were thousands, tens of thousands of priests. They were massacred. Like almost all of them were massacred. And they were replaced with priests who were being chosen by the Soviet Union. And that was during the time, I mean, there were decades that went by when the Orthodox Church was called
Exactly.
the Soviet Orthodox Church of Russia.
Yeah, those are fake though. Like I like the catacomb church in Russia, like it kind of got like started with Saint Tikhon of Moscow and like they remained underground like the original Christians did.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm basically like the continuation of that church, you know?
Well, I like the idea you have. Your idea is not that much different from ours, which is that we want to be part of the original uncorrupt church and we don't want corrupt priests. We don't want to submit to corrupt false priests. But the only way for you to really know that you are part of that original church is to go back to the beginning of church history and see what the whole church agreed on and see if the modern bishops haven't changed those things.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
And I and my friends, my very, very dear and close brothers, who some of them I've met online and others I've met because they live where I live in America. We have all decided that we were going to investigate the early church. I've been doing it since I was about 18, almost 19, and I'm 29 now, so it's been 10 years now. And
Oh,
we have learned so much about church history. We've spent a lot of time studying it, and we don't see any church today that matches the early church. And that's why we've never joined the Orthodox or the Catholics.
not even the true Orthodox?
Nope, the true Orthodox are very similar to the others. The only real difference between true Orthodox and the other Orthodox churches is, I mean, the ordination of priests is pretty important, but their priests are no better than the other priests because they all come from a line of either emperors or kings or just governments choosing who are going to be the priests, and that is totally corrupt. That's been going on for many, many centuries.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you have
Yeah, it
minor
has.
things like the calendar, and that's so silly to fight over the calendar when you have much bigger issues.
It's pretty important though,
Well, what do you
I
think is
think.
more important? Let's say, hypothetically, I'll show you in a second. By the way, what was your name? I'm Luke.
I'd rather not say my real
You
name,
can give me any
so
name then, just so I can call you something.
James.
That's a good name. Well, James, what do you think is more important? Surely you do know that some things are more important than others, right?
Yeah,
Some things are vastly more important. For instance, the early church disagrees with and condemns the current Orthodox and Catholic Church on a lot of issues. One of them is probably one that you've heard before. It's the issue of divorce and remarriage. The Orthodox Church allows up to 3 marriages. They say that you can divorce your spouse and remarry, and the priest will bless it, and they'll say, well, we're going to do the penitential rite of marriage. They'll say it's the penitential. So they'll say there's not going to be a big celebration, and you're not gonna have the same ceremony, but we'll still bless the marriage a second and a third time after divorcing your previous spouses. And they do this in all the Orthodox churches. And Christ and the early church, for so many centuries, call this adultery. And this is one of their major sins, one of the reasons why we can't join them, because they allow adultery. They even bless adultery. They think they can sanctify adultery. Have you ever heard about this?
I agree very much with you because that's what Jesus says, like if you go marry someone else like that, you can only basically divorce through adultery, right? So, they should not be blessing extra unions like that. But are you sure they do that in the True Flow Church?
I know they do in all other Orthodox churches. I guess it's for.
Yeah, but they're like heretics though.
But James, understand it's kind of hard to investigate what the true Orthodox believe because they're so scattered. And it's been something that the Orthodox Church has been doing for so many centuries, going back to the 500s. So it's very old. It's not something they just recently started to do. I'm not
But
aware of the true Orthodox making an issue out of that. Their issue is about the calendar.
wait, like, have they been doing this since the 500s?
The true Orthodox Church?
Not like the Orthodox Church, because then we were the same in the 500s.
Exactly. So it is something that the Orthodox Church started to allow very gradually.
Wait, but can you show me like any proof that they did this in the 500s?
Yes, Justinian is one of the first ones to start allowing that. And you know that when the emperors got involved, emperors always have many wives. But
Yeah,
yes, this is something that goes all the way back to around the 300s, 400s, 500s. That was when the church was starting to become corrupted by emperors. We don't believe emperors or any government should be involved in the church, either involved in the ordinations or in trying to decide doctrine or calling a council. We would say that that invalidates the council and it invalidates the ordination if any government official is involved. That was a teaching that the church had for 300 years. And we've collected many statements from the church fathers saying that if anybody's ordained by, or if they're not just ordained, but if they're chosen by a king, and they say, or any ruler of this world, then that person's automatically excommunicated. And so is everybody that is associated with them.
Wait, but like the king is God ordained though.
Well, do you acknowledge what I'm saying, though? The question of why we're not allowed to have kings is a separate question from whether the church really did teach this. And I can prove to you the church did teach this. But now you have a question of, well, why? Aren't kings God ordained? That you see,
Yeah, like
that's a secondary question, though.
because in the Old Testament, like the King David, he did a lot of things similar to what like the Orthodox Church did in church history,
Mm-hmm.
kind of.
Have you read yet First Samuel, the book of First Samuel, or sometimes it's called First Kingdoms?
Not in its entirety, no.
Well, the way it goes is there's a prophet named Samuel, and Samuel is asked by the people of Israel if they will please have, if he'll please ordain a king for them. Do you know about the story about him ordaining King
I know
Saul?
about the story. Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
I know.
and do you remember if this was something that God was supportive
God
of?
was not pleased. Yeah, he was not supportive of it. I
Yes,
know.
here I'm putting a video in the chat. God was so angry, he said that by doing this, by asking for an earthly king, they have rejected him. They said they have not rejected you,
Yeah, I
Samuel,
know.
but
I
they've
know.
rejected me. Watch this video. But yes, this is the early church's view that God never wanted an earthly king over them, but rather that bishops are our authorities. And we live in human society, we live in this world, but we're not really citizens of it. We don't get involved in government, we don't get involved in political office. That's something that's forbidden to us as Christians. And that is the unanimous teaching of the church for 300 years until Constantine got involved.
What about King David? Did God compromise when he ordained him?
Well, he compromised with King Saul. Yes, certainly. The true,
He did? Why would God compromise?
well, you know, he compromised with King Saul, don't you?
How so? Can you show me?
Well, God said that they had rejected him by asking for a king, right?
Yeah, but God doesn't compromise though.
Well, certainly. God will condescend. Condescending to somebody is when you give them something that they're asking for, but it's not really that good for them. You remember, for instance, when the Israelites were asking God for quail. Do you remember? They were asking for meat, and God gave them birds, and he was so angry at them. He says, I'll give you meat. I'll give you so much meat that it'll be coming out of your nose. That's a real statement from the Bible. God said that. It'll be coming out of your nose. And so he makes these birds come down to them, and the Israelites kill the birds and they're eating it. And then they were eating it so much and just so greedily that God suddenly started striking them with a plague. And so God gave
Like,
them something, but then when they got it, he was just angry at them and he punished them. And God did the same thing. He said, I will give you a king, but I'm going to teach you why kings are bad. And he said, I'm going to give you a king, King Saul, and he's going to make your children his slaves. And he says he's going to do a lot of other really bad things. You should read it again. So God gave
yeah,
them
but king,
something as a punishment.
yeah, but kings are like spoken in scripture of being God ordained. Like King David was a righteous king.
Right.
He was a saint.
We Christians do have a king. We do have the son of David, but is that an earthly king, James?
Like,
Who
I
is our
can't really,
king?
of course, the King of Kings, but there are kings as well.
Well, they're just not Christian kings. The son of David, our king, the king that you're talking about from the line of David, he's here. We have him. We don't have two kings from David. We just have one king from David from that lineage. He's the real king. So we don't have any more Israelite kings.
Yeah, but that's like saying, oh, we have one high priest. Why can't we have, oh, we can have regular priests? Like,
Do you think
oh,
there is an Israelite king from the tribe of Judah? Because that's the only
of
king God
course, of
ordained.
course. But it's the King of Kings. Like, that implies there's other kings as well,
No.
you know?
I'm asking if you think there's another king that we can have, because you can't point to the Israelite kings and say that's why we can have Roman emperors. You can't say that because they're not connected to each other. An Israelite king was something that God allowed, but a Roman king, a Roman emperor, is not something God ever allowed, is it? something for us to have as our own personal Christian king.
What are you talking about, like the ethnicity, or like what do you mean?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things involved. There's this is an ethnicity. God didn't say they could ever have a king from any other tribe except Judah. So obviously that king is not from Judah, so he's not our king. He's just one of the kings of this world.
You mean the promise of like kingship in tribe of Judah, or like is that what you're referring to?
Right, right. But
Okay.
again, you already
Uh,
agree that we Christians have our king, which is Jesus. So you can't use anything from the Old Testament to justify a Holy Roman Empire or anything like that. Because all of that is fulfilled in Christ. You should watch this
what,
video.
what
When you watch the video, I think it'll be clearer to you.
okay. Do you guys have priests or?
No, we're a lot like you and like the old believers and everyone else, except we're not in denial, James, because there are no legitimate priests anymore. It's been destroyed. At least there are no high priests. There are no bishops. Christians are priests. Every single Christian is a priest, but we don't have those priests anymore. It's just like the days, well, it's like a lot of the days, like in Israel. Do you remember then when there were many years, sometimes long spans of time, where in Israel all of the priests had become worshippers of Baal and
Not all of
Ashtaroth?
them. Not all of them.
Yes, all of them.
Elijah was not.
He wasn't a priest. All the priests were worshiping Baal. And it was the
Are you
same
sure all of them? Or are you
y-
sure about all of
yes,
them?
yes, all of them. There was not one priest that was still faithful to God. God says all of them were unfaithful. We have a lot
Can
of,
you show me?
oh, sure,
Can you show me?
tons of scriptures are on this subject.
Wait, so but then the Aaronic priesthood would have been broken.
Well, some of those priests later on repented, but there were times in Israel's history where every single priest was worshiping Baal. And there were
No,
times,
but even if they repented, that line is broken because literally all the church was in heresy.
you're
Then,
talking
like all
about the
of Israel
church.
was
Well,
not like in like I'm referring to Israel, but the church is Israel, so
right.
you know.
I agree. Yes, that is correct. The church is Israel. And so that's why we knew that this would happen, because just like we saw it happen in the Old Testament with that carnal Israel, it's bound to happen with the spiritual Israel. That's what Athanasius said. Athanasius said that was happening during the days of the Arians, when there was a 40-year period where all the priests fell away. He said this is just like in the days of Israel, when all the true believers were kicked out. None of them could be in the temple or take part in any of the sacrifices because there were no sacrifices anymore. It had all stopped. So that's the same period we're in. This has been going on for a long time. That's probably shocking to you, but we can prove it to you.
But I'm concerned because like in the Torah, like you have to keep the Aaronic priesthood going. You can't have everyone apostatize.
But
How
that's
do you say
exactly
it?
right.
Like
That is exactly
it's
right. God even promised that. He promised that he would give them priests from the tribe of Aaron. And he says that, it's something very similar, like when he says that there won't be a king that fails from the tribe of Judah. He says the same thing about the priests, that they will always have priests. But then, James, do you know what happened? There ended up being a period where they did not have priests. It's not that God lied, it's just that God said he will provide these things, but Israelites have to cooperate with God. If they don't cooperate, then there's not going to be any sacrifices, and there's not going to be the religion that God laid down anywhere in the temple, at least. It will be in the individuals who run away, like Elijah did and the other 7,000 people, but it won't be within the city of Jerusalem. And that's how it is right now.
I want to see proof of it though, because like then of course God wouldn't lie, but he would make a false prediction if he said
No,
like
no, all of God's
the priest.
promises. I'll answer that. I understand why you would think that it sounds like a false prediction, but we've been reading the church fathers for years now, James, and we've heard what they say about this. They talk about this issue of when God makes a promise, his promise is contingent on us obeying him, or else we don't get to enjoy the fruits of that promise. For instance, do you remember when Jesus said to the 12 apostles, "You 12 will sit on 12 thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel"? He said that even while Judas was standing there. But does Judas get to 12? Or does he get to sit on a throne and judge the 12 tribes of Israel? No, he does not. And many times God makes the same promises to Israel over and over that he will bless them and keep them. But he says, if you turn away from me, you won't have any of these blessings. So the same goes for us now. The church was guaranteed to have all of those blessings as long as she was faithful. But just like she became an adulteress in the Old Testament, she became an adulteress in the New Testament.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. But like with the priesthood, it's kind of different because he reaffirms it over and over again, like that, like you can't, in the Torah at least, right?
Mm,
Like I want to see like how where it
here,
says like that
I
no
just
priest.
I just gave it to you on the right. I give a lot of quotations from the Old Testament that talk about all the times when the priests totally fell away. And as you scroll down, you'll see quotes from the church fathers who say
Where
that
where is it?
I
I
just
can't see.
posted it on the right. I
Oh,
can
in
also,
this in discussions.
yes,
Wait. Oh, okay, okay. I didn't see the shot. Okay. All right. Uh, okay.
yes. That video will be very helpful to you. And this is a huge document that we're adding to all the time because all of us, all the people that have joined this call that you see, we all read the church fathers together. We are all reading scripture and the fathers. Some of us have been doing it more years than others. Nolan and I have been doing it about 10 years, and others have been doing it like 6 years and so on. But we collect these quotes. It is very clear from the Old Testament that Israel completely fell away from God multiple times in its history. Sometimes there were so many years that went by, they forgot who they even were. They forgot that God had set them free from slavery in Egypt and that he had performed all those miracles to bring them to the promised land. Do you remember that story about how one of the times in Israel, they weren't even using the temple? They didn't even know about the Old Testament scriptures. And then somebody went into the scripture, or they went into the temple and they brought back a book to the king. And the king said, "Oh, you brought back a book. Read it to me." And it was the Old Testament. And they hadn't read it in so many years, they completely forgot about it. That's pretty much how the church is now. You tell somebody about the early church's doctrines, and they're just like, huh, what is that? Isn't my current church the real church? But especially if you're part of the true Orthodox Church, you know that most of these churches are completely corrupt. But it's just worse than you realize. It's not just a calendar, James. I wish it was something really small like that. That's so easy to correct, but it's much bigger issues that have been going on for centuries.
Are you sure Elijah wasn't a priest? Wasn't he like which tribe was he from?
No,
Was he
Elijah,
not from?
no, he was not a priest.
He was not a priest.
Nope.
Wait.
But James, let's say, hypothetically, even if there were some priests on the earth, like you're suggesting, and you're saying that the true Orthodox has those priests are not everywhere in the world, are they? There are just a few of them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, only a couple places in America. It's almost impossible to find them. Wouldn't you admit that?
You mean at Ruflux?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say so.
Well,
They're very.
I've done it before. I'm in America. I've asked true Orthodox priests. I went on that guy. Well, there are not very many of them, so you probably know about him. But Sweden, you know
Yeah.
his YouTube channel. I mean, I've talked to him before, and I mean when they
Oh, Sweden. Oh,
Sweden,
Sweden.
yeah.
Oh, that guy is a heretic though. He's in a weird synod that nobody recognizes.
Well, see, there you go, James. Do you see how crazy this is? There are just so many different groups of true Orthodox that have
Yeah,
excommunicated
but
each other.
dude, his synod is founded by a Freemason. It's a weird cult, bro.
But do you
Like,
do you see what I'm saying though? It's so hard. Even he was saying, "Oh, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to ever find an Orthodox parish near you that teaches what we believe." And that will be true for any group claiming to be that small little minority of true Orthodox Christians.
the thing is, like, when people find out about true Orthodoxy, there's literally like no resources online, and the only resources is this guy called Gregory of Colorado on
Yes.
the internet,
Hmm.
and Sweden, like you mentioned, and they're both weirdos.
Yes, it's
Basically, they're like heretics.
so why are you with them, James? Is it just because you really want the truth? You want the original church and you know that it's not the Eastern Orthodox, you know it's not the Catholics, you know it's not the Orientals, but you see that this is very difficult. It's hard. You don't have a foundation to stand on, and even if you do choose one of these groups, tell me, how do you know that they're teaching the truth? Is there a way to know?
Okay, wait. Like, I I want to discuss more like Eastern Orthodox theology because that's like what my um worldview rests on. So if it's not correct, like I have nothing, you know. So there you go.
Well, sure, we can discuss it. I'll tell you what the scriptures tell us and what the church has always said throughout all the centuries. The way we know that what we believe is true, the only way we can know, is if we go back to the very beginning. Have you ever read Vincent of Lerins talking about this subject?
No.
Let me show you. Let me show you something. This will give you a lot of confidence. All right. Do you think Vincent of Lerins accurately represents the church's teaching on orthodoxy, or have you ever even heard about him?
Okay.
Have you heard about Vincent?
No, I've never heard about this guy. Who's this
Really?
guy?
Okay. Okay. Well, here, let me show you a clip. I know that you would say Josiah Trenum is a heretic, but let me just show you a clip of him. A lot of people have joined the Orthodox Church because of Jay Dyer and because of this man. This man,
But these guys are clowns, though.
I
They're
I
absolute
know, I
clowns.
know, but it doesn't change the fact that the Orthodox Church has always referred to this man Vincent of Lerins, and I'll read you something he said. He lived in the very early 400s.
Those
Let me
groups
show you
did.
something.
But
Is he a
still, the
saint?
principle
What was that? Oh yes, of course.
Is Vincent of?
Yes, he wrote a big book against a bunch of heresies in the 400s and about 434, and a lot of the Orthodox and Catholics will both refer to it. They say the principles that he lays down in his book are principles that the whole church abides by. So he's venerated in Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox Church, and apparently the Anglican Church.
Wait, who said like his teachings are like dogma? Or wait, what do you mean?
Well, like the rudder.
Oh yeah, the rudder. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's quoted all throughout that. He's very respected. He's very respected at the councils. They refer to his book. Remember, we only have one book from him. It's called the Commonitorium. This book. It's a really great book.
Okay.
We all love it. But this book just it just lays out all the heresies, and it gives you the medicine. It gives you the principles to follow if you are ever to avoid heresy. So this commonitorium is quoted a lot. That's what I'm about to read you. I'm just going to read you a few sentences from it. But first, I'll just show you Josiah Trenum.
is the
But
same.
like, can
It
you like
can't, and for
can you cite the rudder for me because I really like rudder. I agree with the rudder like almost on everything, you know.
Yes,
And it's like
yes.
dogma, you know. So
Oh, yes. I mean you can look it up. Look up Eastern Orthodox Church on Vincent of Lerins, or just type Vincent of Lerins. You'll find the Orthodox Church quoting him constantly. He's in their mind, he is a very trustworthy man. He's not somebody that they consider to be wrong in his representation of orthodoxy at all.
yeah, because saints can be wrong, you know, but like there are other things that can't be wrong. So you
Right.
know,
Well, the whole church teaching at the same time from the beginning for centuries can't be wrong, and that's something I'm going to show
yeah,
you. So
yeah.
listen just to Josiah. I'm just going to show you like 10 seconds.
for us, we follow the witness of the church as articulated by St. Vincent of Lerins. He says in his Commonitorium, he said that the way that you can know if your faith is the Orthodox faith, it's not by quoting scriptures. Every heretic does that. It's by showing that what you believe has been believed by all people in all places at all times since the time of Christ.
So he says that is how you know. If it's been taught by the whole church from the very beginning, then you know that that is orthodoxy. Let me just read this to you. I'm just going to read this to you, and then you can ask as many questions as you want. But we agree with this. By the way, James, what Vincent is saying here is not his own creation. Remember, he's writing in the early 400s. Vincent is actually telling you what the fathers have been teaching for 4 centuries before him. And in this huge document we have here, we quote tons of church fathers way before Vincent, all saying the same thing. So really, he's just summarizing what many other church fathers have said throughout all the centuries. But here's what he says. He says, moreover, in the Catholic Church itself, all possible care must be taken that we hold that faith which has been believed everywhere, always, by all. For that is truly, and in the strictest sense, Catholic, which, as the name itself and the reason of the thing declare, comprehends all universally. So he's saying it has to be everywhere universally. That's what Catholic means. This rule we shall observe if we follow these principles: universality, antiquity and consent. We shall follow universality if we confess that one faith to be true, which the whole church throughout the world confesses. And we shall follow antiquity, that just means something being old. We shall follow antiquity if we in no way depart from those interpretations which it is manifest were notoriously held by our holy ancestors and fathers. And we shall follow consent, or he just means the consensus. That means the majority of people. He says we shall follow consensus if in like manner, if in antiquity itself we adhere to the consentient definitions and determinations of all, or at the least of almost all priests and doctors. Then listen to this part. He says, what then will a Catholic Christian do if a small portion of the church have cut itself off from the communion of the universal faith? What, surely, but prefer the soundness of the whole body to the unsoundness of a pestilent and corrupt member? And then he asks this next very good question. He says, but what should we do if some novel sickness, some contagion, seek to infect not merely an insignificant portion of the church, but the whole church? Then it will be his care, he's saying this will be the Christian's obligation, to cleave to antiquity, which at this day cannot possibly be seduced by any fraud of novelty. But what if in antiquity itself there be found error on the part of 2 or 3 men, or at any rate of a city, or even of a province? Then it will be his care by all means to prefer the decrees, if such there be. So he's saying sometimes you can't find decrees on certain things, but he's saying you should prefer the decrees, if such there be, of in an ancient general council to the rashness and ignorance of a few people. But what if some error should spring up on which no decree is found to bear? Now listen to this part right here. He says, then he, the Christian, you and I, James, we must collate, that means we collect, and consult and interrogate the opinions of the ancients, of those namely who, though living in various times and places, yet continuing in the communion and faith of the one Catholic Church, stand forth acknowledged and approved authorities. And whatever he shall ascertain to have been held, written, taught, not by 1 or 2 of these people only, but by all, equally, with one consent, openly, frequently, persistently, that he must understand that he himself also is to believe without any doubt or hesitation. So that was what we did, James. When we saw that the church was all splintered and in disagreement with itself and excommunicating itself after all these centuries, we said, well, we're not going to join any of these groups until we can find out which of them is the original church. And what's that method, James? How can we find out whether a church really is the original church?
Well, you consult the fathers.
Clearly. I mean, and that's logical. We were doing that even before we read Vincent of Lerins. That was years and years before we read Vincent of Lerins. We were just, we heard the Orthodox and Catholics both say it. They said, we are the original church. You need to go back and, find out that we are compare our beliefs with the original church. And so we did that. We were being obedient. And you're being obedient if you do that. This is exactly what we're supposed to do. It's the only thing you can do. It's the only logical thing to do. Go back and read and find out what the whole church taught. Did the whole church teach the same thing on these doctrines? And you're going to find out, yes, they did. They actually did teach the same thing on so many doctrines. You might find little variations, James, but not big variations. For instance, on the Trinity, the whole church taught the same thing on the Trinity. You might find them explaining it a little bit different here and there, but they all agree there is a divine, pre-existent, all-powerful Son of God, and he comes out of the Father, and he is the creator of the universe and our King. And they all agree on that. None of them think that Jesus was created or that he was adopted or anything. And this goes for many doctrines. They all teach the doctrine of the resurrection, the doctrine of the judgment. They all teach on marriage the same way. They say divorce and remarriage is completely forbidden.
But I have a question though. So, like, which actual canons or so which ecumenical councils or actual canons or Rudder type, like infallible dogma, do you have a problem with from the Orthodox Church?
Well, bowing down to images and worshiping God through images is something that was forbidden by every single church father, without exception, for 400 years from the very beginning. So we do not bow down to images or burn incense to images because the whole church condemned that. And it actually went far
Uh,
beyond the 400s. But
So
we've,
you would not agree with like what's his name, Saint Isaac of wait, who's the guy like?
John of
I'm
Damascus.
thinking of. Yeah, exactly that guy. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
you would not agree with him, I guess, or
Well, the question is, does John of Damascus agree with the early church? And he doesn't.
okay. Can you show me where like the fathers don't agree with icon veneration?
Of course. I was hoping you would ask. Now, I want to just show you this document real quick before I start reading any quotes. I want to show you something. So these are all the church fathers we quote in this document. 61. That's how many we've collected so far. So Clement of Rome, Ignatius, Matthias, Aristides, Justin Martyr, Tatian, Melito, Theophilus, Athenagoras, Irenaeus, Clement of Alexandria,
Why
Tertullian.
would you? Yeah, that's very good. Is excellent. But why would you quote like Tertullian and those guys though?
Well, doesn't the Orthodox and Catholic Church quote Tertullian all the time among all the other church fathers?
They do, but it's like it's not helping you if like they're heretics, you know.
Why do the Orthodox and Catholics quote Tertullian?
Wait, what do you mean? Which ones do?
The Orthodox and Catholics quote Tertullian all the time. They
Yeah,
all,
but they're anathemized, like they're
I
excommunicated.
know that the Orthodox Church has anathematized Tertullian. We also have considered Tertullian not to have ended his life rightly, but you know that Tertullian wrote many things while he was a Christian before he ever became a heretic. So shouldn't we all value those writings? Shouldn't we consider that another witness? And if they agree with all the other church fathers' writings, why is that not a valuable witness?
I wouldn't value them
So
personally.
why, James, why do the Orthodox and Catholics get to quote Tertullian to support their doctrines, like making the sign of the cross, but we don't get to quote Tertullian?
which canons quote Tertullian?
I don't know if any canons do, but I know that Orthodox priests and Catholic priests
Yeah,
quote
but like I
Tertullian all
don't
the
care
time.
about like what Orthodox priests do. Like I care about the can. That's why I became true Orthodox because I
Well,
only care
well,
about the
well. Wait a
canons.
second, James. Look how many people we quote. Look how many people we quote. If you want to reject Tertullian, do you think that makes any difference here?
Yeah, but I'm just like
So it doesn't
going.
matter. Don't be in denial though,
That's fine.
James.
That's fine. That's fine. Can we
You
go
can,
through
in
like
fact,
some of them?
you can reject half of all these people, and we still have enough to prove our point, don't we?
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's
I
good.
just want you to be
Yeah.
aware the people we're quoting include not just the ones you've probably heard, like Eusebius or Epiphanius, but look who we have. We have Athanasius condemning all bowing down to images, and Ephraim the Syrian and Gregory of Nyssa, and everyone, because they all condemn it. Every single one of them.
Yeah, can I
Ambrose
see? Can I
does.
see? I want to see this. I want to see this.
Yes. Who do you name anybody? I mean, we have Augustine. Augustine completely forbids it. Jerome forbids it. Everyone does.
Clement. I want to see Clement of Rome.
Sure, we can start at the very beginning. Now, have you ever read the book called The Recognitions of Clement?
No.
It's a book that many church fathers consider to have been written by the real Clement, so we have quotes from him. So, the first part in this document, I'll post it for you so you can see.
But like, are they on New Advent though?
Of course,
Are they on?
of
Okay,
course.
can we go on that side? Because like, I want like neutral ground. You know.
Yes, all of this is quoted directly from New Advent. So
Okay.
you know with any quote that you ever find on the internet, you can go like this, you copy it, you put it in there, you just enter it, and it will come up right away. Here it is.
Oh, okay. Nice, nice.
You never have to, you will never struggle finding quotes if you just say, you can also say New Advent, New Advent.
Okay, cool.
Yes, just make sure you put spaces. Yes, anyway. So this first one, these are a bunch of quotes from Recognitions of Clement, which many church fathers like Jerome and Rufinus and all the historians consider, Epiphanius and many others say this was written by Clement of Rome. Let me just show you one thing first before we get into that, because we also have many scriptures. I want you to know something. If the whole church had taught your doctrine that comes from the Orthodox much later on in the 600s and 700s, that's when this doctrine appeared for the first time in church history. If we found that the whole church taught it, then we would go along with the entire church. Even you do know, James, we've read a lot of the church fathers for 10 years. We have encountered things that we disagreed with, that we thought, oh, that sounds weird. That's so strange. But we still obeyed it because it was what the whole church taught. And
Yeah.
do you know what iconodulia is? Do you know about this phrase, iconodulia?
No, no.
Do you know about iconoclasm?
Yeah.
Iconoclasm means destroying icons, people who destroy them, and iconodulia, you can look it up anytime. This is here. Iconodualism designates the religious service of icons. This is what they were using throughout the councils, and they still use it today. Many Orthodox priests all use, I mean, they all do, not just many, they all use this term. But iconodulia means icon slavery. This is the phrase that they use. And this word occurs many times in the Old Testament, dulia, for slavery.
Are you reading the Septuagint then?
Of course.
For okay.
Of course. We go along with whatever the church taught.
Okay. I didn't know dulia also referred to slavery.
It does.
Okay.
Here, look in Exodus. Okay. Moses said to the people, remember this day in which you came out from Egypt, out of the house of dulia, slavery. And in Leviticus, it talks about it. You know, Paul in the New Testament says, slaves, be obedient to those who are your masters with fear and trembling. You know, if icons are our masters, if we truly are their servants, then this goes against the so many scriptures that tell you we are not allowed to be enslaved to the elements like wood and stone. I want you to understand, before I start reading these church fathers, and I will read a lot, how much time do you have, James?
To be honest, I don't have a lot, like 15 minutes, let's say.
Okay.
15 minutes.
Well, then I should choose wisely about which ones I'm going to quote to you. But throughout the scriptures, when the scriptures say that we should not be bowing down to idols, the prophets and God always makes fun of idols because they're not alive. You know, look at this, for instance. When it talks about the idols, it says, you know, the idol can't feel anything. There is no breath in them. It cannot move itself. Gifts are placed before them just as before the dead. And, you know, this is from Baruch. We quote from all the church fathers. You know, in the Wisdom of Solomon.
What about like the common argument, you know, like the tabernacle and stuff, you know, like temple and stuff with the statues inside?
Well, I can answer that, and I will give you a very satisfying answer, but I have to ask you first, James. Is this a doctrine, this doctrine of bowing down to images, is this found within the first 400 years of church history? Is this taught by any church father? Can you give me any church father within 400 or 500 years who teaches this doctrine?
I don't think it's condemned, but I don't think it's like...
Well, I can show you that they are going to condemn it, but I'm just asking you if you know of any of them who endorse it, even one. Don't you think you should be able to? Don't you think, like John of Damascus should have been able to quote even one church father?
The thing is, like, with Orthodox, like, history, like, you know, even with the councils and Palmas, for example, describing the essence and distinction, I think, like, the mind of the church knows what's right, but it's elaborated on, like, eventually, you know. So it's kind of found, like, with fragments in the early church, but then it's expounded upon and then, like, you know, elaborated and developed later on.
Do you think a doctrine can be condemned for 400 or 500 years and then it can be reversed and it can actually be a requirement?
Oh, no.
Okay. Then all I really need to prove is that 60 church fathers all condemn this doctrine, and then you would be convinced there's no way it developed and that God ordained it to develop. Okay. Yeah. I could read a lot of scriptures, but I just want you to know the reason why they condemn bowing down to idols is because we don't make ourselves servants to dead things. That's why you're allowed to bow down to a living human being, which you see everywhere in the Old Testament. You're allowed to be a servant of an actual person who's set over you and has authority over you, but you can't do that to a dead thing because you're superior to the dead thing. You are not the servant.
But what about Joshua, though? What about Joshua and Moses bowing down to the ark?
I see that I will answer this for you. After I answer these 2 or 3 examples you have, let's read the church fathers' quotes on this subject. But first I will ask you, James, did God ever tell Moses or Joshua to bow down to the ark?
Well, it's holy.
Well, so, I'm just curious. Like, did God ever tell them to bow down to it?
He didn't condemn it, though.
Okay, but all I'm trying to lay down is that there is no doctrine in the Old Testament that we bow down to images or that we bow down to the ark. Is that correct? It's not something God ever told us to do, right?
I don't think so, no.
Right. It's not. But you're thinking of an instance in Joshua 5 where it says Joshua fell down in the presence of the Lord.
Exactly.
Yes. Now, this
Yeah,
is in the
yeah.
Septuagint. In the Septuagint, it says he fell down in the presence of the Lord. It does not say, and he bowed down to the ark. So you're looking at the corrupted Hebrew Masoretic text that says he bowed to the ark. But the truth is, even if he had done that, he's still not bowing to the ark. Do you know why he's not bowing down to the ark?
But dude, like, I look at the Septuagint only, like the R contains the presence though, you know?
Exactly.
So,
The ark not just contained the presence, but let me show you what it says. God tells them, you shall make, the ark of the covenant. This is in Exodus 25. Can you see my screen?
yeah.
He says, and the cherubim shall spread out their wings, blah, blah, blah. And God says, and there I will meet with you from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim that are upon the ark of the testimony, I will speak with you. And notice that he says, the cherubim shall spread their wings above, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and they shall face one another, and the faces of the cherubim shall be toward the mercy seat. So God says they're supposed to be bowing down. The angels are bowing, but they're facing each other. Who are they bowing down to? Are they bowing down to each other, James? Who are they bowing down to?
The king.
So they're bowing down to the one who appears on top of the mercy seat, right?
Yeah, like the mercy seat contains the presence of
No,
God. Yeah.
no, that's not what God says. He says, there I will meet with you from above the mercy seat. He's not talking about what's inside of it. He's talking about above it. God appears between it, on top of the mercy seat. That's what he promised. I will meet with you from above the mercy seat. Do you see that? From between the two
Which
cherubim.
verse is this?
This is
Which verse is
Exodus
this?
25, verse 22.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if Joshua bows down, which, by the way, the Bible does not say Joshua ever got to, go into the temple or anything like that. But just even hypothetically, if Joshua bows down, and it says he bows down in the presence of the Lord, see, this is Joshua here, and Joshua tore his garments, and Joshua fell on the earth on his face before the Lord. That's what the Septuagint says. We're not reading the Masoretic. Masoretic is the one that says the ark.
Yeah, but this is basically bowing down though. This is
Yes,
bowing
but
down.
who is he bowing down to? Is he bowing down to the ark?
Yeah, but Jesus was not in his incarnate like flesh. He was
Does
he was
Jesus
not like that.
did appear physically though sometimes, didn't he? Doesn't he say that?
Not
There I
not
will.
in the flesh. Not in the flesh though.
Well, it doesn't matter if he has flesh or not. He's appearing visibly so you can see him, right?
Yeah, but that's what we believe in, like the Eucharist as well, though.
Right.
You
But
know?
don't get distracted, James. He says, there I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim. So he is appearing to them from between the two cherubim, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, do you not bow down to the Eucharist when receiving
Well,
it? Like,
well,
I do
James,
that.
I'll answer that, but just don't get distracted. Do you see the point I'm making here? I'm making the point
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Joshua
yes,
was bowing
yes.
down to a living person, God Almighty, appearing between the two cherubim. He's not just bowing down to this ark, he's bowing down to a person who's standing between it. He doesn't bow down to
Yeah,
dead
yeah,
things. So this isn't a very good example, is it?
yeah. But like there's intricacies, you know. For example, like the essence energy distinction. Like we believe the icons possess, you know, the energies
Well,
of God. You
I,
know.
I know that you do believe that, but let's see what the church fathers believe. Let's see if they teach that same doctrine, okay? I can quote any church father you want. Name anybody. You said Clement?
Yeah,
Okay, this
yeah.
is
Go
from
for Clement.
Recognitions
Yeah.
of Clement. This book, we made a whole video on this channel. If you want to know what the church fathers say about this book, the church fathers say Clement of Rome, Peter's disciple, wrote this book. So I'll read you what Clement says he heard Peter tell him. He says, Peter said this. Peter says, for what can either dead images or living creatures confer upon men, that just means give to men, since the power of all things is with the one. He says, I wish to explain to you whence the worship of idols began in this world. And by idols, I mean those lifeless images which you worship, made, whether made of wood or earthenware or stone or brass or any other metals. Of these, the beginning was this. And he goes on to explain. I want to point something out to you, James. Do you notice that that Peter and all the church fathers we're about to read, I just want you to pay attention. They all say the reason we don't worship them is because they're just dead. They're not alive. They never say, Oh, the reason why it's wrong for you guys to bow down to these idols is because they are depicting the wrong thing. You're making pictures of the wrong thing. They never say that. They just say, don't bow down to dead things. See where he says lifeless images? He continues, he says, through the mouths of others also, that serpent is prone to speak in this way. We adore visible images in honor of the invisible God. So we adore visible images in honor of the invisible God. Does that remind you of anybody, James?
He does, yeah.
Yes, it's kind of funny. He says, Peter says, now this is most certainly false. For if you really wish to worship the image of God, you would do good to man, and so worship the true image of God in him. For the image of God is in every man. So you see how we're supposed to serve living people, not dead things.
This is it's a crazy quote. It's very interesting. Recognitions of Clement. I've never heard of this
Yes,
book.
and we have many more. Every single church father says the same thing, so don't think everything rests on this book. You could name any book. You said Clement, so I went here, and also have some more from his letters, not just from recognition. So I'll keep scrolling. And so he says, if you wish to worship the image of God, then, he says, feed hungry people and give thirsty to thirsty people, clothing to the naked, etc. He says, what then? What is that honor of God which consists in running from one stone or wooden figure to another, in venerating empty and lifeless figures as deities, and despising men in whom the image of God is of a truth? So he's saying the true image of God is in living people. You know how the Orthodox will say, Jesus is the image of God, so we can bow down to dead images. But you see, James, Jesus is not a dead image. He's the living image of God. He's a copy of the Father. He's just like the Father, and he's alive. But a painting is a dead image, so we can't bow down to a dead image. That's not how God is worshipped. God made living images on this earth for us to do good to minister to. That gives us credit in God's sight, not doing it to something dead. He says, but you are wicked against the God of all, worshiping lifeless images instead of or along with him, and attributing his divine name to every kind of senseless matter. He's saying it's senseless. It doesn't have any sensation. So that's why you don't bow down to. And by the way, when he uses the word worship, he is talking about bowing. All the church fathers are saying proskuneo, proskuneo. That's the word for prostrating or bowing down. Many more quotes. He says, you are the image of the invisible God, whence let not those who would be pious say that idols are images of God, and therefore that it is right to worship them, for the image of God is man. He who wishes to be pious towards God does good to man, because the body of man bears the image of God. He says many more things. He says so many, James. I know you have to go soon. Let me read you again. Here's Clement of Rome in 2 Clement. He says, brethren, it's fitting that you should think of Jesus Christ as of God, as the judge of the living and the dead, and it does not become us to think lightly of our salvation. For if we think little of him, we shall also hope to obtain but little from him. He says, but we were deficient. He's talking about when he was a pagan. He says, we were deficient in understanding, worshiping stones and wood and gold and silver and brass, the works of men's hands, and our whole life was nothing else than death. Involved in blindness, and with such darkness before our eyes, we have received sight. So do you notice how he says, we used to proskuneo, we used to bow down to stones and wood and gold and silver and brass, the works of men's hands, and he says our whole life was nothing else than death. It doesn't sound like he's still doing that, does it?
No, yeah.
Here's Ignatius. Here's the only quote we have from Ignatius, because he doesn't talk about idolatry very much, but this is quite a quote, James. Listen. He says, nothing visible is eternal, for the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. For our God, Jesus Christ, is more visible now that he is in the Father. What do you think that means? How is Jesus more visible now that he's gone? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Wouldn't you say Jesus would be more visible if he were standing here with us?
Well, it's hard to interpret, but it's
Well,
there's many ways you can
let me help
interpret
you.
it.
Let me help you. Many church fathers say the same thing. Do you know Hilary of Poitiers? Or
Yeah,
okay, well, let me give you
yeah,
some Hilary. He's one of my favorites. So he's a little bit later. He's in the 300s, but he says the same
yeah.
things. He says, he's talking about Jesus now. He says, it was not the carnal body which he had received by birth from the Virgin that could manifest to them the image and likeness of God. The human aspect which he wore could be no aid, that means no help, towards the mental vision of the incorporeal God. By the way, they all talk about how Jesus' body was a veil over his divinity. Have you ever heard that before, that Jesus' body was like a veil and it was hiding his true nature, his true identity?
The thing though, like a lot of I forget which church fathers, but some of them were heavily influenced by Neoplatonism, and
Well,
I
well,
don't agree with
well,
this statement.
wait a second, James. Didn't you already admit, if all the church fathers say this for 500 years, that is the doctrine of the church? Nobody can
Yeah,
change
yeah,
that. If
yeah, yeah.
all of them condemn it, you can't go and say they were all wrong.
Yeah, I know, but like for example, this I wouldn't agree with this
So
because
you think
he's
Ignatius was influenced by Neoplatonic thought?
like in this verse I don't agree with because Jesus is in the flesh right now in heaven. Like he's enthroned in the flesh,
But does
you
the
know.
flesh
So
help you to see God? Do,
I don't know. Like it's yeah, I don't know.
Well, in the scriptures, in Hebrews, it says that Jesus' flesh was a veil. A veil is something that hides what's underneath. So Jesus' true essence, like, Jesus before he took on flesh, could you see him? Like in heaven, he, the God of the whole universe, nobody can see him. Nobody can see him except with your mind, right?
Abraham and Moses talked with him. So
Yes, he took a physical form, but do you understand the concept that God doesn't have a body? He can put on a body, but God is actually above everything physical, everything that you can see, right?
yeah, of course, but Jesus has a body though,
He
and he's
he
God.
he took on our nature, but that's not God's nature. He went and took on our nature and he put them together. But God himself doesn't already inherently have a body. He just took on our nature so that we could go and be like him. But he is incorporeal. Do you know what that word means?
Of course, but
Okay.
like he made us in his likeness,
Well,
and
the
he's in the flesh right
ultimately,
now.
James, ultimately, the question is, do you agree with all the church fathers? Let me read a little bit more from Hilary. So he says, it was not the carnal body which he received by birth from the Virgin that could manifest to them the image and likeness of God. The human aspect which he wore could be no help towards the mental vision of the incorporeal God. Other images, made of metals or colors or other materials by various arts, reproduce the appearance of the objects which they represent, yet can lifeless copies be put on a level with their living originals, painted or carved or molten effigies with the nature which they imitate? The Son of God is not the image of the Father after such a fashion as this. He is the living image of the living. You see how they are always talking about how some images are dead, but God's image is alive. Look at these quotes
Why would
too.
you say that though? Why would you say? Why would you say the Son is not the image of the Father?
He says he's not the image of the Father in the same way that, an image reproducing the appearance of something is the image. He's saying that's not the image. The true image is something that's
Oh,
alive.
oh, okay, okay,
You get
yeah,
it?
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. He says the elements of the world are either lifeless or else they've been given life, but Christ is the life who's been born from the living God into the living God. The elements of the world have been established by God, but they are not God. By the way, you know how John of Damascus says that matter is divine, it is God. That's what he thinks.
Can I see? Can I see? Which, where?
Well, I could quote it to you. Here, let me show you John of Damascus. He says, he says, I will not cease from worshiping the matter through which my salvation has been effected. He says, if the image of the king is the king, the image of Christ is Christ, and the image of a saint is the saint. That's what John of Damascus said. So he thinks the image, something you make out of wood or stone or gold, he says that actually is Jesus. That is God. That's a doctrine that he
So you,
invented. Nobody before him ever taught such a thing. They all condemn
wait, but
that.
are you,
What
but
was that?
wait, are you sure he's referring to like the elements, like
Yes.
the
Yes.
wood?
Oh, yes. Yes, James. He absolutely does. The whole Orthodox Church says that. They say icons are Jesus. They are God.
No, 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 no,
Yes.
no, no,
Well,
no,
what do you think
no,
he
no.
means here? If the image of the king, the image of Christ is Christ. He's saying you worship Christ through that image. You should treat that image like it is Jesus. That's why you bow down to it and burn incense to it.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough,
Well,
man.
that's what he
That's rough.
says. That's what he says. Listen to Hilary. He says,
Rough.
some, however, worshipped those corporeal and visible forms of created things. See, look at that. This is amazing. Some, he's saying the Orthodox worship those corporeal and visible forms of created things themselves in the elements of earth and heaven. Lastly, certain individuals place their gods in the form of man, animals, beasts, and serpents, and confine the God of the universe and the author of infinity within the narrow limits of metals, stones, and genealogies. It doesn't sound like
Interesting
Hillary
though.
has this practice, does it?
I have like a last question before I gotta go.
Yes.
Um, do you like isn't Jesus's like fleshly body created?
Yes. Yes. And it was joined with his divinity.
Yeah,
Yes.
and people like Thomas worshipped God like Jesus when he was in
Yes.
the flesh,
Yes.
you
And
know?
because it was alive, though. We're allowed to do that to someone alive, but you can't do that to a dead thing. You get it?
But like you can only worship God though.
Right. God's alive. No, you can worship
Yeah.
human beings. Of course you can worship human beings. The word worship I'm using here is proskuneo. It means bow. You can bow down to a human being. But you can only give
Oh, yeah,
sacrifices.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you can only give
What like
sacrifices to God.
okay, but then we're using a different word, like definition of the word. Like I mean like worship, I mean like you know what everyone like normal people. Okay, like you're normal as well, but like you know what everyone used the word worship to mean worship, you know?
Well, we shouldn't
Like,
actually use their word. We should only use what the church fathers are saying, because otherwise we'll get confused. We can't take our modern idea of the word worship and then put it on them. We need to take their idea and just figure out what they mean by what they say. They say this, James: we don't bow down to dead objects, but we do bow down to a living object or a living person or God, just not dead things, not lifeless
okay,
things.
okay, but what would you say instead? Like give thanks? No, no, wait. Like work, like sacrifice to, or okay, like I guess is that what you mean?
Well,
Like,
there's two things. Remember, God forbade two things. He says you shall not bow down to images or serve them. And he's talking about giving them sacrifices. So we're not allowed to do either of those things. No bowing down to dead images and no burning incense to them. That's a sacrifice. And the
sacrifice to
Orthodox the Orthodox and Catholics do
people.
both.
Can you sacrifice to living people?
You can't burn incense. You can't make whole burnt offerings and things like that,
Why?
because that's spiritual service. That symbolizes offering up prayers.
Okay, what's the only thing you can do to God and can't do to others?
It's offering up sacrifices.
Okay, 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 okay. So could you offer up sacrifices to Jesus?
Of course, he's God.
Like, yeah, but like in the flesh though, could you? You can,
Certainly,
right?
certainly. And remember that even his flesh is alive.
Okay, this is kind of confusing. Okay, okay, I have to think about this.
Yes, you
Yeah,
see how we have an answer to everything though, James. We are allowed to even bow down to a living body, a living human being, just like the people in the Old Testament did. You just can't do it to someone who's dead. You can't do it to a piece of wood because you're better than that wood. You're a human being made in God's image. A piece of wood is not made in God's image. You're not even allowed to bow down to an animal. Do you realize that, James? And an animal is alive. Would you ever bow down to
yeah.
an animal?
No,
And do you think like a father should bow down to his son? Do you think
no,
that's
no,
perverted? I mean,
no.
that's messed up.
Yeah,
Or do
it
you think
is. Yeah.
even a man should bow down to his wife? Or does he have authority over
No,
his wife?
no, no. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So we're not allowed to bow down to animals. That's perverted. We're definitely not even allowed to bow down to another human being if they are actually under our authority. So why would we ever bow down to something that's not even a human, not even an animal, not even alive? Do you see why God forbade that? He does not want to be worshipped by making pictures and you bowing down to them. He wants to be worshipped by you offering spiritual sacrifices to him and do good to his living image. That's the church's doctrine. By the way, I know you have to go, but there are so many church fathers. Do you see how many quotes we have here? Do you see? This thing goes on forever. So They all say the same thing.
Can you link all of this? Can you like link? Is it
Yes. I dropped it here on the
being
right.
posted? Okay, cool. So this is okay. Thank you. Okay, I have to go. Thank you for the discussion.
You're welcome.
I'll be back probably.
Okay,
So
I hope so.
yeah.
I hope I get to talk to you again. It was good talking to you.
Okay.
God
Thanks,
be
man.
with you.
Good night. You too.
Has he departed? Well, there you go. I was in the middle of eating my salad. You guys can talk. Let me just take my last bites. Yes, we're talking about apologetics on one of the very most important doctrines of one of the, well, actually the biggest denomination on this planet, guys. Most of the Christians in the world are Catholic or Orthodox. There's 1.3 billion Catholics and about 300 or 350 to 400 million Orthodox. So we're talking 1.6 or 1.7 billion people who are taught this doctrine that the only way to worship God is by bowing down to images and lighting candles to them and putting crowns on them and burning incense to them. They think that that is a requirement. That is how God wants to be worshiped. You all should be familiar with how to refute that. So you will meet people throughout your life, especially if you claim to be part of the early church. Then Catholics and Orthodox are going to assume that you're one of them. They're going to be shocked when you say, "No, I actually don't serve images." They're going to say, "What?" So just memorize these things and make use of this resource here and listen to the calls to be equipped to answer those people and help them come out of that deception. It's one of the greatest deceptions that's ever been perpetrated on the whole church. And it's affected far more people than faith alone by grace alone.
Luke, when did you hear what I said like a couple minutes ago, or was my connection really bad? You didn't hear me?
I didn't hear you, but I saw your comment here. I just saw it too late that I could have shown him that part
Oh,
from
no,
chapter 1.
no problem. No, I was just yeah, it's just my connection. I went to the bathroom and my hotspot went off. But um, what I find interesting whenever you have these discussions is just how whenever you read the quotes on images, like it's there's never really like a valid response that any of them have. And like this guy, he was shocked by it, right? So it's like that's kind of shocking because you don't really it's like they always say, "Oh, the early church teaches our doctrines," but then when you show them these sort of things, they're just shocked by it because like their main thing revolves around images, you know? I just find it really amazing how like how they're always shocked by it and there's not really any valid responses.
What I'm shocked by is the failure of Protestants and people like Berceau, who claim to be experts of church history in the modern day, the failure of these men in collecting the statements from the fathers on all these subjects, because they all
Mhm.
talk about it. They all talk about it. For instance, I mean, guys, when you go online, you never find any quotes from Recognitions, or look, I'm at the earliest quotes here. Ignatius, Mathetes. I mean, Mathetes, good gravy. Like sometimes you'll see Aristides, you'll see Clement of Alexandria and Tertullian. Those are like the ones you always get. Clement of Alexandria, Tertullian, and Origen. But why aren't they quoting all of them? Irenaeus, Tatian, everybody, Melito. Melito's quotes against image worship are just killer. Why are they not making compilations of all these quotes? You go and talk to any Orthodox or Catholic and they're like, you're going to quote Epiphanius, aren't you? I was like, no, dude, we can skip Epiphanius. We can skip all Origen, all Clement of Alexandria, and all Tertullian. We can skip all the quotes you're used to, and I'll give you hundreds more from the 100s, 200s, 300s, 400s, 500s. And this is another hilarious thing is when we're saying, oh, we've done so much work, we've done more work than other people, we haven't even gone all the way. We've barely scratched the surface. When you read John Chrysostom or Ephraim the Syrian, they are all just tearing image worship apart, and you never find these quotes online. What are these people doing all day? They have free time, so much free time. Brian, I think you might hold the record for most reading of the Church Fathers of anybody today in this world. I don't know. We'll find out on Judgment Day. But
What? I
where
think
are
you're
these
probably.
people? Where are the
I think you're
people?
probably going too far with that. I think you're probably. There's no way. No, 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 no.
But like, look
I
at
don't
Mathetes.
accept.
Look at Mathetes. Look at Mathetes. It's these quotes from Mathetes are some of the best. He talks about these stupid pagans. You know, he says they all contemplate their gods with their eyes. He says, but we Christians don't contemplate gods with our eyes only. He says, are not your gods, is not one stone similar to the same stones you tread on? Is not another brass? Is not another one wood? And not another one silver, iron, earthenware? He says, aren't your gods? He says, are they not all corruptible matter? See, he's bashing them for bowing down to and serving something made of matter. He says, might not these which are now worshipped by you, he's talking about bowing down to them, couldn't they have been made by men into vessels that are similar to others? Are they not all deaf? Are they not all blind? Are they not all without life? Are they not destitute of feeling? Are they not incapable of motion? Are they not all prone to decay? Are they not all corruptible? Can't all of this be said to the Orthodox? He says, these things you call gods, these you serve. He's using the word dulia. And he says, these you worship. Now he's saying proskuneo. And you become altogether like them. For this reason you hate the Christians, because they do not deem these to be gods. And they might say, oh, see, it's only the pagan gods. See, they would do this with their own special icons. Well, wait a second. Is that what he's indicating? Like, oh, we would do this we would make brass and gold and wooden icons. We would. No. He says, we don't do that. Are not all of these corruptible matter? He says, we don't do that. We don't serve or bow down to images made of matter. That's what he says here. It couldn't be more clear. He says, do you not much more mock and insult them when you worship these, or those that are made of stone and earthenware, without appointing any persons to guard them? He goes on to talk about how people steal these things. He's like, that shows how pathetic they are. He says, and here's the real kicker. This is the good one from Mathetes against images. He says, but those who imagine that by means of blood and incense and burnt offerings, they offer sacrifices acceptable to God, and that by such honors they show respect to him, these people, by supposing that they can give anything to him who needs nothing, appear to me in no respect to differ from those who studiously confer the same honor on things destitute of sense, and which therefore are unable to enjoy such honors. So he's saying those Jews who burn incense and do all that, he says they're no worse than people who bestow these honors on images.
They're no better.
Oh, is that what I said? They're no worse? Oh yeah, he says no, they're no better. Exactly. Aramis is here to help me. He says they're no better. The Jews are no better than those people who who bow down to and burn incense to dead images. Does it sound like he endorses doing this to Christian images? No. Why aren't all these quotes on all these websites? It is obnoxious to only see Tertullian, Origen, and Clement of Alexandria. They're great quotes, but why do they act like there are only 3 people out of numerous ante-Nicene fathers and post-Nicene fathers who condemn image worship?
I wonder why he pointed out Tertullian out of the entire list for some reason.
That's why I went to the list, because if you don't, guys, if you say all the church fathers, they don't know how to visualize that. So why don't you help them? Help them visualize it. Just do this from now on. Just say, all right, I want you to pick anybody. Who do you respect? Okay? That's how confident I am. Pick anybody in here. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody. You want Basil? They're like, Basil says the honor paid to the image passes on to the prototype. Okay, we're going to go to your very Basil, and he's going to rip you to shreds. And you're going to spin around. You're going to say, actually, Basil makes mistakes. They all make mistakes. Oh, okay. So when you were quoting him there, you're just pretending. You acted like he supported you, and you actually acknowledge he condemns you, and you actually don't care.
I think the.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on. Oh, okay. I think that the quotes from the feeds are probably. I mean, I like those ones more particular or more specifically because it says that in I think in chapter 11 that he was a disciple of the apostles. So it's like you have someone writing a letter who claims to be a disciple of the apostles, and they're bashing what incense offerings and like um images and stuff like that, which I
Yes,
find pretty pretty nice.
that is a great idea. Let's add that to the quote.
Luke,
Add what to the
do you
quote?
have the quotes up from, let's see.
Chapter 11, I think, Luke.
Yes.
There you go.
You were saying, Raheem?
Hold on. Let me get the guy's name.
I'll add this
You
to
should
the.
add more of the quote.
Yes, you're
You should
right.
add a little more, a little after that section in chapter 11,
Yeah,
which you were getting.
I will.
Hmm.
It's a good idea.
Perfect.
We're doing it live, guys. The debate is over. We're just adding quotes now.
That wasn't even really much of a debate. He was just getting schooled.
Well, we're also hoping, if he comes back to us, that he'll be convinced and that he'll make brothers out of us, because we want to be his brothers. We don't just want to school people. We want to teach them, but we want them to be saved. So got to be careful, Isaiah, not to rub it in with people as if they're our enemies, because he wasn't an enemy at all. He was shocked to hear those things. And I'm always very impressed to hear somebody say, no, I've rejected all the Catholics, all of the Eastern Orthodox, all of the Oriental Orthodox, because I think they're all corrupt, and I've decided to join the smallest possible group. That at least shows that he's not afraid. He's not afraid of being excluded. He just wants the truth, but he hasn't known where to find it, and maybe God has led him to us.
No, yeah, I wasn't trying to bash him or anything, but I was saying, he didn't even really have that many good arguments to bring up. Of course, he brought up, you know, Jesus and them supposedly bowing to the ark in the old covenant. And every time that you answered an objection, he's trying to move on to the next counter argument, like, but what about this? What about that? And yeah,
But they
it's up
need
to you.
that. We must have compassion for them. They need it. When you've been thoroughly indoctrinated into their lies, you actually get satisfaction, if you're an honest person, from hearing somebody chop to pieces all of the lies that you were taught. You say, oh, you've
Yeah.
set me free. These chains strongly bound me, and I felt like I could never escape them. I felt like these were all compelling arguments. But here, let me give you another one. Destroy this chain. And here's another chain. Destroy this one. And it's good, guys. It's not necessarily them opposing you.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
I was just gonna ask, Luke, how comes you don't have any quotes from Apollonius, considering he's so early, and he says this about icons. Well, not icons, but images and worshiping the dead bones. Pretty good.
Let's see here. I do not honor idols created by human hands. Good gravy. This is a great one. I don't honor falsely named gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, or stone, which neither see nor hear, because they are made by craftsmen. What? What do you mean, Apollonius? You mean they're depicting the wrong thing, Apollonius. Please amend your statement for the record. This is great. Yes, go ahead and send me the text for this. This is a great one. I don't know why I never
Yeah,
thought to
I'll
add
send
this.
you. You know, I always thought it was there, so I never sent it.
Apollonius. Add it. That is so great. That's wonderful.
His quote is similar to Maceed's.
Yeah, send me this whole thing. This is excellent. I can't believe. But this is what I was saying earlier, guys. We didn't even have the time to collect all this stuff. I mean, guys, do you understand it will be in the hundreds just within the first 500 years of church history, because there are that many church fathers in the first 500 years. It will be in the hundreds, I guarantee you. We will be able to say, let me give you, 150. Will you be convinced then? No, because my council overrides it. But doesn't your council claim to be the original church? Yes, can you please not bring that up? Doesn't your council claim you don't even have the authority to override the decrees of the fathers? Yes, you weren't supposed to read that.
Let's see here.
What if another
Luke,
council comes along
oh,
and overrides that one?
Yes, what if they changed their mind? Do you guys know that there were you guys know how in the Catholic Church, in their history, they've had these guys called anti-popes, a pope that will be a rival to another, and he'll say, I'm the real pope. There have even been some times where there were 3 popes claiming to be the real pope. Did you guys know, so many centuries went by with some of them, that the church never officially ruled on who was the legitimate pope until 1954. So the Catholic Church was in suspense for all those centuries. And the worst part of it is that the people living at that time are going, well, wait, who is the real pope? Well, there's no way to know. Well, wait a second. If I'm with the wrong pope, I'm with, the Antichrist. That's what they say. If you're not with the real pope, then you are with the Antichrist. That's what they say. But wait, there's no way for us to know who is the real pope. And then they say, well, finally, after all these centuries, 1954, we're going to officially declare that guy was the real pope the whole time. And that other guy was the anti-pope. And everybody who was with him, obviously, they're damned. What? And it's the same with their councils. Oh, yeah, we decided centuries later, the people on that side were right the whole time. Wow, thank you. Thank you. And there's nothing stopping you from doing that again. Reversing it again. Actually, they were wrong the whole time. It was the other side that was right. It's total chaos if you live in that subjective world of the councils can come along and overthrow what was taught from the beginning. The only firm foundation is to believe what was believed universally by the whole church from the beginning. That's your only safe ground to stand on. Yes, I know, Brian. And yet, the Catholics and Orthodox still quote him all up and down. There's a tradition that says he repented, but I don't know if that's trustworthy.
Wait, who repents it?
I've heard all kinds of
Hippolytus?
traditions. Yes, the Hippolytus. I don't say Hippolytus. I say Hippolytus. That he changed his mind and that he was allowed to stay in the church. I forget who said that.
Oh, well, was he in heresy at some point?
Only that there was an ordination of him against another who was not worthy to be the bishop.
But no heresy.
No.
Okay, because I heard there was like something where, like, one of the reasons he was writing his apostolic tradition is because he felt that the church wasn't really cleaving to and preserving the traditions handed down from the apostles. And him and another friend got like exiled to some type of island, and then like they eventually died like some years later.
he made peace with he made peace with someone who so apparently, if it's true, he and some other guy were like
like at odds with each other, and then when they got sent to an island together, they reconciled, and then they got martyred together. I think is the story.
If you could quote
Oh, I
that.
thought they were already like together. It was Pope Pontius, if that's how you say his name. They got exiled to Sardinia.
Luke, you should finish doing this Mercedes part just so you don't get distracted by other things.
Yeah. I'm
Just
trying to
finish
read
it
it
up.
and listen at the same time. Somebody send me that whole
Oh,
Apollonius section with the citation. That's a wonderful quote. Oh yeah, excellent. Very
Hold
nice.
on, let me send the verse thing as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
uh, so do you want the citation to be like this, or to remove the second century thing? Oh,
Hello?
Hey, Elisha.
Hello? I'm at Christian's cleaning up the place.
Oh, cool. That's nice.
there you go. That should be good.
Hope everyone's doing well.
Yes, we were just having a call with someone who was considering joining the Orthodox Church.
Yes, I was listening.
Oh, very nice.
I got my car with its wheel on now, and I'm able to drive it finally again. I think it's been like 2 weeks since I last drove.
Good for you, Elisha.
Apollon. Yeah, I think Apollonius is from Alexandria, so
Yeah, this is a
I don't think
different
that's.
Apollonius.
I sent it. I sent it.
Yeah, I see it. I was just trying to get the year. I try to put the year on all of these.
Well, it said the second century.
Condemned to death and beheaded around the year 186. Okay, cool.
Yeah, wait, we didn't get that. I've listened to that so many times. Trial Apollonius.
Yes, it's such a great one. So let's add it here. It'll be Apollonius 185. Who will this be
I
after?
was gonna I was gonna quote that, but I was like, well, there's no way you guys don't have that. But I guess never mind.
All of you have much to contribute. Never doubt yourself.
For the greatest oath is the truth expressed in yes.
It is shameful to worship what is of equal worth to humans, or even lower than demons.
It's Apollonius?
Yes.
Is that in the section here? Oh, here we go. Wow, what a quote. This is killer, guys. What are they going to do when they finally meet us in open combat?
They're worshiping things that are lower than demons.
At least a demon is alive. That's what he's trying to say.
At least a demon is actually moving around. You're just worshiping paintings that don't even move.
And they believe that that honor given to the image passes on to the person as if they were standing there to receive it. And if they ever tell you, look, we're not giving it to the image, we're giving it to the person, you just say, then if it's not being given to the image, why do you say the honor paid to the image passes on to the prototype? Why do you say that? You are paying honor to an image. You believe these icons are holy. They say they are the holy, sacred, divine icons. That's not the kind of language you use if you think that the icon itself has nothing special about it. It's just the person being depicted. No, the icon to you is a holy, sacred object. You believe that to destroy that is to destroy the image of God. That's what they teach. They believe that's one of the worst sins, to destroy an icon. Wonderful quotes, guys. Really wonderful.
That part's good as well. Serve God in heaven, worship Him alone. He bows to God alone.
Some of the most killer quotes we ever found. Amazing. And here the ticker goes up from 61 to 62. Just like that. Simply amazing. But they act like, I'm not even sure which is more condemning of them. The fact that there are so many post-Nicene fathers destroying them, or the fact that you have so many pre-Nicene, because, they couldn't care less what the pre-Nicene say. They act like the church didn't exist for 300 years, and that all those fathers living in the first 300 years were just caveman or something, just stupid. Well, then you get to the 300s. Look, I quote Hillary, and it's nothing personal against James, but although I'm afraid it is cowardly not to tell people your name. You should always tell people your name. But nothing personal against him, but still, my goodness, you quote anybody, and they'll say, well, he was, all the fathers were influenced by pagan teachings, Platonism, all that. What? You actually would condemn every single church father like that just so casually? Don't you realize that that is a great sin? You're really going to do that casually. Don't you know all the church fathers were, pagans? Do you know what you're
Exactly.
saying right now?
Exactly. I'm always behooved when the Orthodox and other people, they just loosely condemn the fathers and say these outrageous things about them. Mind your tongue.
Well, it's very clear, guys, that we are the children of those men. We are the ones preserving their teachings as faithful students. We've listened to the masters, the teachers who know better than we do and who died for Christ. The Catholics and Orthodox don't have that zeal, guys. They don't have that allegiance to Mother Church. We will obey our mother, who Dad put in charge and said, obey your mom. We have that allegiance. They have this allegiance. They have that kind of allegiance toward the councils, but they don't have it toward the fathers. Actually, I'll take that back too. It's not even toward the councils, guys, because I have shown Orthodox and Catholics the canons of their own councils. And they'll say, well, the canons aren't infallible. It's just they're dogmas, they're dogmatic decrees. It's not the canon. It's like, what? What is more dogmatic than a canon? And by the way, what do you even? I don't even know what to say. So there is no allegiance. We're the ones with that mindset, guys. We are the faithful children. Preserve that mindset.
Me and Dante were talking about this once. We know that the reason why a person would accept any doctrine is for some emotional or some underlying reason. For most people, it doesn't really come down to the intellectual part of understanding what the fathers say. But we have to admit, it is easier to just say, okay, these guys claim to be the church, the early church. They claim to be the church that has preserved the teachings of the fathers. So I'm just going to run with that. It's easier to listen and just submit to a priest in your area and just call it a day. But it's harder to accept to accept the state of Christianity, to accept that most people who call themselves Christians are heretics. And it's easier to just listen to a priest than to go back and read the fathers and investigate what they actually said. So it's easier, but we don't do easier.
Yes, they need to be told that Christ would lead his crowds out into the desert and would teach them obscure and difficult things and expect them to dig deep and figure out what it meant, and that the church would allow people to be catechumens sometimes for years, sometimes up to 3 years. I'm sure that wasn't every case, but it was in some of the cases 3 years before they could be baptized. And they should consider the obligation that's been placed on them to carefully listen to their teachers and learn the whole faith, and not think that this will be easy. Just jump into it. They think that just because their teachers are so lazy about teaching, that just means, well, I don't have to learn it. Well, no, you live in an age of the laziest people in all of history. And the same applies to their priests. The priests don't take people and disciple them. There is no discipleship in these Catholic and Orthodox churches. All of the discipleship going on in the Catholic circles is in online apologetics, but the priests themselves are not discipling people. And what people need to do is they need to indoctrinate themselves as they're doing, but from the right sources. Don't sit there and listen to Jay Dyer for hours and hours a day and a week and month. You need to sit there and listen for hours and hours from the true teachers of the church.
Exactly. Going back to the fountain, the pure water. And also something that I've realized with these Orthodox, as maybe this could tie in with it being easier, they just repeat the same arguments all the time. The same arguments that they've learned from these apologists online and the same arguments they've heard from their priests. But they have not investigated if these things are so. You'll hear them condemn Origin so loosely, but you'll ask them, have you read anything from Origin? Ah, no, they haven't. But they have the gall to just do that, not understanding the dangers of saying such a thing.
You said it, Raheem. They don't really consider these people to even be real. Like, would you slander someone in real life and expect to go unpunished in the next life? I would hope you wouldn't.
No.
But I mean, you have to consider that Origen is a real person and a real martyr of the church. You can go with your stupid council's decree all day long, or what some obscure fanatical monk told you he saw in a vision of hell, that he saw Origen in there. You can believe that nonsense if you want to. But ultimately, you're going to answer on Judgment Day if you slandered anybody, especially a righteous man in God's sight. And we should all be fearful of that. We should be really cautious. And I want you guys to know, I am cautious about it. They think that we're so disrespectful to men like Augustine, but I am cautious about these things. I don't want to blast and condemn somebody as a complete apostate of the church unless they truly are, unless it's clear that they are a wicked person. We should all be careful about that. Augustine has taught some despicable things. What is worse? Truly, what doctrine is worse than to condemn all of the most innocent people in God's sight to hell? I challenge anybody to think up a worse doctrine. The fathers for the first 3 centuries, and really even all the fathers who Augustine was surrounded by in the 300s and early 400s, such as John Chrysostom and Epiphanius and Hilary and all the others, they're all saying, oh yeah, infants are all innocent. They're all going to heaven if they die, even without baptism. But Augustine comes along and is the first one to say, actually, I think they all go to hell. And he writes out his theory, and he sends letters to Jerome, one of which we cite in our big baptism video, where he's saying to Jerome, I'm trying to figure out a theory here of how this whole condemnation of the infants goes, because, they have to be baptized, and if they don't, they have to go to hell, right? And he's like, I've got 6 different theories going. Tell me which one works. And he names his ridiculous speculation, 6 different versions of his heresy, and he's asking Jerome for ideas. Like the truest, bluest heretic you could ever imagine. Like, which heresy sounds nice? Which version of my heresy? It's like he's writing a book report or something. Like, I've been working on this. Can you give me a review? I mean, you've never seen a more classic heretic than that. And Augustine is the most classic heretic, and he does condemn those who are most precious in God's sight. So you really can't be too harsh. I don't know how you could be harsh against someone like that. Like, dude, don't be so harsh against that guy that condemns all the babies to hell. Why are you so harsh on him? Be, merciful to that completely merciless man. But my point is, we should be careful. He's the one that we're probably harshest against out of all the so-called church fathers.
Exactly. You should be careful about slandering anyone. But I think Orthodox would say this, even if they would say, okay, even if you think Origen was in Augustine was in error on this point, you should still not say that about him. You shouldn't say, oh, these things about Augustine. But they'll say loosely that Tertullian is going to hell. That they'll say that.
Well, someone like Tertullian who is actually excommunicated, I think still it's up to God. God makes the ultimate decision. Because I don't know if in some completely undocumented scenario he actually repented. I don't know. So I can't condemn Tertullian. I just know he was excommunicated. And there's no record we have of him ever repenting. Jerome says he lived to decrepit old age and never did repent. So that may be true. But in any case, we should be cautious. But the person who shows themselves to be most condemned is the person who condemns the righteous. So anybody who condemns all the fathers, that person's just, that guy damns himself. He condemns himself. And anybody who condemns all babies, he's going to answer for that, guys. Augustine is a real human being in Hades right now. He will answer for that. Despite all the good things he taught, he mixed so many evil things in his writings that were used to justify going to war, and were used to justify many evil heresies in the Protestant Reformation, the denial of free will. Calvin latched on to a lot of his ridiculous statements about us being donkeys. We're stupid donkeys. We're just a dumb beast, and we're just being ridden by a master. And sometimes God rides us, and sometimes Satan rides us, but we can't really control ourselves. And he made all these analogies and taught these things, and Luther and Calvin latched onto those. Augustine will answer for that. He will answer for rewriting the Ten Commandments. I mean, the audacity. He actually rewrote the Ten Commandments. Did you guys know Augustine removed the second commandment when he wrote out his commentary on the Ten Commandments? And he said that the second commandment, which forbids bowing down to images, which, by the way, Augustine himself condemned that, but still, he did this thing which paved the way for the Catholics to rewrite this thing in their official catechism. He says the first commandment really should just be combined with the second. He says, not having any other God besides God and not worshiping images. He goes basically the same thing. So he says, let's just say first commandment, and then let's skip to the third. And then he says, it's still 10 commandments, though, because you can take the 10th commandment and you can just make the 10th commandment, 2 commandments. You could say, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife or his maidservant. Or covet. Isn't that what I said? Covet. Yeah, you shall not covet. Of course, that doesn't make any sense because the 10th commandment says you shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his maidservant or his donkey or his ox, and it names a bunch of things. So, that is absolutely ridiculous. He would do that. Here's the Catholic version of the 10 Commandments, which they have in their catechism. So a lot of people going through catechesis in the Catholic Church, a lot of them don't even know what the 10 Commandments are. See this, guys? This is what it looks like. Catholic 10 Commandments. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. And then the 10th commandment is, that was number 9. Here's number 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's goods. Oh. But they got rid of the second commandment that says you shall not make for yourself an image. Augustine paved the way for that. He did so many little things.
Diamonds joined the call.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome, Diamonds. We haven't spoken in a long time, have we?
I think we did.
What
But
did
not
we
like
what did we talk about last time?
PC.
I'm an open book. I'll talk to you about anything you like to talk about. Did I suggest you look into certain things last time we spoke?
Yeah.
Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
And what was it?
It's the article you had. I think you sent 2. One about war and one about images.
I see. What was the conclusion you came to?
Still looking. I can't lie.
And do you mind if I ask how old you were?
18.
That's right. Well, you know what we're all about. We would be in the Catholic or the Orthodox Church right now if we could verify that they really did respect the early church and that they had preserved faithfully the teachings of Christ, which he gave to the apostles and which the apostles gave to the righteous men who followed them. But when we investigated it, we found out that the Catholic and Orthodox Church could not care less what the early church says, and they will pick and choose things. Even things like baptism and the Eucharist, they corrupt. They don't even practice those things, which we know the early church was right about, that there's baptismal regeneration and the real presence of Christ in his sacrament of the Eucharist. They corrupt those things. So we've never joined them, and we never will. And we invite anybody who thinks that they're part of that original church to please listen to what the church universally declares on so many doctrines. Tonight we were talking about the image worship doctrine. We were speaking to someone from the Orthodox Church. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about? Because I'm here. Might as well make the use of the opportunity.
I'm good right now. I just plugged in
All right.
to the VC.
That's fine. But you're in the midst of a bunch of people who are all of the same mind. And so you do stand out, Mr. Diamonds. You should talk about any issue that you are not sure about. We're all here to discuss it with you, not to be hostile or to fight with you, but to show you anything that you want proof about. We can show you the proof. That's why all of us have been working together to contribute quotes on various subjects. Right now, I'm working on this presentation on the subject of veiling. Yeah. Look, guys, I found some pictures online. I don't know who made them, but sometimes people in like the 1800s, when they made depictions of Jesus and the adulterous woman, look, they made the adulterous woman veiled. Isn't that crazy? I didn't make this. This is not AI generated.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, there's stuff. I know this is really bright. This probably hurts your eyes a lot. It hurts my eyes too.
Do you have that one of the Ark of the Covenant?
What, this one? Yeah, I improved it.
Nah, the one with the doily.
Oh, yes. This one gives you joy.
Yeah,
Yeah. Imagine if they...
that's what it's all about.
Yeah. That's so bright on my eyes, it hurts.
Hey Lou,
Yes?
were we covering anything specific right now, or we're just kind of?
No. We were jumping in the call because an
Oh, okay.
Orthodox young man wanted to speak to us, and he was real upfront. He was real to the point. I like that about him a lot. He said, "Hey, you want to get a call?" I was like, "Yes, let's do it."
Oh no, I was there for that part for a good amount at least. But I just meant like right now. I don't know if you're about to like teach something, but it seems like you're just kind of looking through your documents.
No. There are so many things for us to call and talk about. I've made lists.
I had to leave for a second, but I was gonna say earlier. I don't know if someone already said this already, but how Raheem touched on how they'll just casually throw out accusations, slander really, which is a great sin against the church fathers, calling them Neoplatonists or aka pagans. But on top of the sin of slander, if these same church fathers supported their doctrine of icon veneration, then what now? Does that not disparage their position? And matter of fact, like they would just skip past that. They wouldn't even say that in the first place and give them, assign that accusation to them if they supported their doctrine. But it's like, okay, so if they did support your doctrine, then now are they not Neoplatonists, or they still are Neoplatonists? But what they say is valid just because it supports you. So, you know. And then another thing, I was gonna ask you. Actually, I'll let you guess what I'm gonna ask. I typically ask this.
I think he wants a quiz.
Okay, I see what he's doing. I see how he's playing it. Might have to wait until I go back out there for Easter. You guys are of the position that the early church fathers weren't Neoplatonists?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't believe they were Neoplatonists. I know people will say, for example, that Origen and Clement of Alexandria were Neoplatonists, but there's really nothing to support that argument.
What we believe is that Plato arrived at many right conclusions through logic, and that you can do that, and that everything that Plato taught was not wrong. It's crazy to say just because Plato taught so many things on these subjects and that the fathers agreed means that they are Platonists. That's absurd. You'd have to say that John the Apostle is a Platonic philosopher because he uses the word logos. Or you'd have to say all the apostles and Christ himself are into copying Greek mythology because they use words like Tartarus and Hades, and that's absurd, of course. But Plato taught a lot of right things. He also taught a lot of wrong things. And whatever all the church fathers agree on, diamonds, then that has to be true. Also, the church fathers point out that Plato himself stole from the Old Testament, borrowed a lot of things he read in the Law of Moses to establish his ideas, to formulate his ideas. Yes, Aramis has a great video. Somebody grab that. Give Diamonds a link to it. So, yeah, we agree that the church fathers agree with Plato, but Plato agrees with Moses and ultimately with the truth in a lot of points. Yes, he did copy and paste quite a bit. That's a recurring statement that you find in the church fathers, that they say, Plato really just stole this.
Yeah, Justin Martyr talks about it in depth in his first apology, and maybe in his dialogue with Trypho as well. But the fathers they touch on this. I believe maybe Irenaeus does as well. Oh, Luke, do you hear what I said earlier though?
What was it?
I said I had a question to ask you, but I was saying to guess. But I was just gonna ask
Oh,
if
I'm
I can
so
get
sorry.
quizzed.
I was muted the entire time and I was speaking to you and I didn't even realize it. I'm so sorry. I wouldn't ignore you like that. I knew that's what you were going to say, but I've just, I got to wake up early for Christian. He always gets here super early in the morning. And I have to spend time with my wife, who I've neglected. And I probably have to spend time with the babies before bed. And I do have a big cough and I've been muting myself to try to hide it.
I see. I'm gonna have to quiz myself. I understand though, Luke. You got, you got a family. You got other things. I'm gonna keep up my studies though.
Good. I'm really proud of you for keeping at it, Isaiah. Keep on filling your brain with knowledge. You have to think of your mind as a field, as a garden that needs to be cultivated. If you don't, all your plants will wilt and dry up and die. Or think of it like a sword that needs to be sharpened. You'll become dull if you let too much time go by where you're not exercising it. I've seen this happen to people. I've seen people who were very sharp, maybe even for years, and then when they stopped reading the church fathers, when they stopped reading the Bible too, suddenly it all just disappeared. Sometimes things stay at the tip of, at the front of your mind, the tip of your tongue. Some things are really deeply embedded in you, but I have seen those same things just disappear when you are not regularly refreshing yourself with the knowledge, even the knowledge of the same things that you've learned. You have to keep refreshing over and over. I've also seen it with myself because I have had periods in my life where I went like a month where I didn't read any church fathers, and that's really bad. It's not good for you. You will lose your sharpness. So keep it up, guys. Regular, even if it's a little bit every day. Keep yourself nice and sharp.
No, yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, Diamond's Lactantius is wonderful. His Divine Institutes are wonderful. You should read all of them. Yep, Ben, I've seen the same thing. Even a week can have a really bad effect. But 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month is terrible.
Luke, what time is Christian going tomorrow?
He usually arrives at 5 a.m. But since my mother is visiting,
I'll be there.
You're coming over tomorrow?
Yeah, Sunday.
Oh, I thought that was Ben. Oh, Ashton, yes, you're here. I was like, Ben, that would have been so cool just showing up here. No, it's Ashton. Okay, yeah, Ashton, you guys can come as early as you want. Get over here, Ben. No, but my mom actually won't be here tomorrow, so you guys can come as early as you want. I'll text Christian.
Okay, yeah, I'll be there at 5.
Cool. Then
Luke, I've actually thought about doing that, like pulling up on you and like one Sunday just texting you, "Hey Luke, can I come over for Sunday fellowship?" And you're gonna be like, "What? Aren't you in a whole different state?" And then I just knock on the door.
It would be a real pleasure to see you guys.
You're giving him too much of a courtesy. I just knock on the door and be there.
Nah, you gotta like give heads up.
Yes, Ben, we are all looking forward to seeing you very much. So Ashton, Elisha, and Nathan, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I better go.
Yes.
I better go spend like 30 minutes with the babies before they go to bed. And I hope you guys were edified by our brief discussion.
Yes, sir.
All right, farewell.
God bless you, Luke.
Yes, God be with you guys.
Keep
See
up
you
the good
later.
work.
Yep, you too.
God bless.
Bye for now.